So as Muslims, we believe in one creator. We don't believe the creator has persons. We believe just one creator, literally, right? One God, one creator, right? Just like the Jews used to believe, Abraham used to preach, right? We believe in prophets and messengers of God. Jesus, Moses, Noah, Abraham, Muhammad, all of them. You heard about that. We believe in Jesus as a messenger of God. I'm sure maybe you know about that. We believe in the virgin birth. We hold Mary to a higher God, right? So when I've read the Bible, all of it, when I was reading it, I was trying to understand where you guys are coming from. That was my objective of reading the Bible, right? So when I read the Bible, I would say I found so many verses that would go against the idea that Jesus is God. So for example, Christians would say that Jesus is fully man, fully God on earth. Would you agree? So he had all the attributes of God on earth. He was God walking. He was not just human, but he was also God, 100%. So any attributes of God was with him, right? Because if it's not there, then he wasn't God, okay? So that would mean that Jesus was all-knowing, all-powerful, independent, all of these attributes which makes God God. Would you agree? Was Jesus actually all-knowing when he was on earth? The Bible disagrees with that.
Can I say that Jesus was, like, for Jesus to be fully God doesn't mean he has to be in every way acting.
Not acting. No.
When he's on earth,
so he cannot exercise.
He wasn't huge. He wasn't omnipresent.
Sure.
So
he doesn't have to exercise his attributes. I agree with you, but he possesses them. You cannot be 100% God without possessing the attributes of God. That wouldn't make any sense logically.
No, but like you don't have to be exercising that. So
I agree. I'm not saying he is.
Not necessarily in action.
I agree with you. So let's move on. God has to have the attributes. He doesn't need to exercise the attributes. Okay, that's a good distinction. I don't disagree with it. Now, coming here to Mark chapter 13, verse 32. Jesus says no one knows, and you can go after that. Exercise. He doesn't possess. How can you be God and you do not know something? You're ignorant of something. Only the Father knows. Mark 13:32. Mark 13:32. Right. So I would say it's impossible to say something is God when it lacks the attributes of God.
Unless, can I add something? So with prayer, it's something that I've been thinking about lately. How does prayer work? If God is omnipotent, if God's all powerful, and His will stands, how does prayer work? Like, how could we change any of God's mind to anything like this?
Yeah, that's more determinism and free will. It's a whole complete argument there, right?
Yes. God in His omnipotence and omniscience and His sovereignty that means that He can do whatever He wants. So in that, He can actually plan, in His sovereignty, react to humans' prayers. Okay, so because like, prayer.
But how is that related to Jesus not knowing?
Okay, so that makes sense, yeah. Okay,
I'll accept it for now.
Jesus as God, being fully powerful, Jesus as God can actually, within His sovereignty, He's God. He can do what He wants. He can actually not know and still be God. Like,
sure.
He doesn't have to.
No, I'll disagree, because look, there's a difference between what God is and what God does. You're conflating the two. What God is His essential attributes. What God does can be this or can be that. I'm talking about the essential, what makes God God by definition.
Can I have another question?
Yeah.
Where did you get that definition from?
I'll explain to you, no problem. The minute you confuse what God is with what God does, you don't have a God anymore, right? Because in order for me to use the word God, the term God, I need to already have an idea, certain attributes, certain definition of what God is. And what God does, I'll explain. And what God does, I'll explain. And what God does is predicated on what God is. Meaning, if God was not all-powerful, He could not do whatever He wants. One is predicated on another. There's a difference between the two, right? So that's the point I'm trying to make. So because God is all-knowing, He can know the future, right? Because God is all-knowing, He can act in a specific way. But we're talking about what God is right now. God is always all-knowing. And when you say God does whatever He wants, He doesn't do anything. Like He can do whatever He wants, but He doesn't do anything because He's all-knowing. Like for example, God would not do injustice to you. He would not put you in hellfire without any reason, right? He can, but He won't. It's like me saying to you an analogy, you can beat up a baby, but you would never do that because if you're a human, you have human attributes. You're a compassionate person, right? You wouldn't do something like that. You can, but you won't. So what God is determines what God does. So God is all-powerful, all-knowing. He does not become ignorant at any point of time. He does not become ignorant at any point of time, because if He did become ignorant, He's no longer God.
I still think like the thing is God is beyond definition. So God doesn't have to stick.
God defines himself in the Bible.
Yes, that's the thing. But like,
He says he's all-knowing.
So you can't say, we as humans can't say, no, God must be all-knowing.
No. The Bible says God is all-knowing.
I know, but
Okay, so it's not me, it's the Bible.
I disagree with the fact that you're saying what God is defines what God does entirely, because we don't.
Can you tell me what part you disagree with that? Did you understand my concept? Like, for example, I'm saying God is loving.
Yeah.
God loving and just.
Therefore, he'll do loving things.
No, therefore, he would do loving things and he wouldn't do unjust things. Do you disagree with that?
we got to go.
I'll let you go. No problem.